welcome to SJ Weekly. No coffee slurps this time because I don't have any coffee. Instead, I have chocolate-coated roasted coffee beans. Check this out. They're really crunchy, and I feel like they're loaded with caffeine. Let's start with, a college student was told to remove a "Fuck Nazis" sign because it wasn't inclusive. This email tells me the university cares more about the feelings of Nazis than the safety of their students. Well, let's be honest, this is the endpoint of identity politics. If you can racialize a non-racial group like, say, Muslims, they're very clearly a religion, not a race. And the process of racializing them is to collectivize them together through shared beliefs and values and behaviors, and then consider them outsiders within the main society. You can obviously also do that to Nazis, which basically makes Nazis a minority race. So I'm not surprised that the university did this. Nicole Parsons said she was fed up with her university's silence over a string of hate crimes on campus when she put up a sign in her dorm window that read, "Fuck Nazis, you are not welcome here." I wonder what these hate crimes on campus were. Were they somebody posting flyers that say something like, you know, it's okay to be white or something nonsensical like that? Very clearly not a hate crime. In my opinion, she should be allowed to leave this up, in fact. It's obviously regressive SJW bullshit, but it's her dorm, it's her freedom of speech. She shouldn't have to take it down. A week after posting the sign in her dorm window, she received an email from a resident director asking her to remove the sign over issues of inclusion. The email says, "I'm one of the residence directors at UMass Amherst and currently the RD on call for East Side. I'm emailing you today in regards to a phone call I've received concerning a sign that is placed in your window. From this conversation, it appears to be that the sign mentioned can be paraphrased as, 'Nazis are not welcome here.' Though this sign is permitted under freedom of speech, I would also like to discuss the impact on the community that this sign has had. There are some in the community who have expressed that the sign should be taken down, as it has created mixed emotions in the community on how to proceed, issues of inclusion, and the ability to be active members of their community. While residence education cannot force you or your roommate to take the sign down, I am asking that you or your roommate take the sign down so that all students can be part of an inclusive residential experience, as well as having a respectful environment to be a part of here on campus." So as it turns out, she's not even being forced to take it down. It's just that somebody complained, and then these people, being the cucks that they are saying that, "Oh, somebody feels bad about this, so can you please take it down?" No, you know what? She should leave it up. She's probably stupid, and the reason she put up the sign is also probably stupid, but it's her right, and she should leave it up. I was in absolute shock. This email tells me that the university cares more about the feelings of Nazis than the safety of their students. You know what? The university shouldn't care about either of those things. The university should care about providing an education. If people want to have political disagreements and exchange points of view, that's their business. As long as it doesn't become violent, the university should not be stepping in. Here's a great tweet from Bro Team Pill. I've always respected this guy's stuff. "Gamers, important warning. Do not bring your meme shit to class or to anywhere." Let's watch this video.
Did you see the Reddit analogy during the Diablo Immortal conference? It was essentially saying, it was about a statement of, do you have a phone, or you have a phone, right? It was essentially, yeah, I can ask you, but I don't want to take it in it.
Yeah, inappropriate. Any other questions about?
Wow. I gotta say, the students going to school now seem to be fucking cucks as well. There are obvious issues with Diablo Immortal. I did a video talking about it earlier, but I guess they just found it offensive, so they had to talk about it at school or something. Which is just surreal. When I was in high school, talking about video game stuff at school would mean that the teacher would tell us to shut up. Maine teen says struggles with gender identity led to brutal stabbing deaths of parents and pet dog. Jesus Christ. Andrea Balser has been sentenced to 40 years after admitting to killing her parents in October 2016. I know there are a lot of people that would just attribute this to the fact that she's trans. I wouldn't necessarily go that far, though there does seem to be some kind of correlation between being trans and other mental issues, for obvious reasons. A teenager who said she killed her parents and the family's pet dog because of struggles with her gender identity has been sentenced to 40 years in jail. She was 17 at the time when she snapped and fatally stabbed her parents. That's fucking insane. Balser alleged she was struggling to deal with her transition from male to female and that her family offered her no support during this time. She also claimed she was molested for years by her mother and physically and mentally abused by her father, Accusations the rest of the family denied. This is fucked, man. Like, assuming that she's telling the truth, and she might be, you know, families do like to cover this kind of thing up. Assuming she's telling the truth, she seems to be a victim who has become a perpetrator. And assuming that she's not, and she just used that as like a cover story, it's very clear that this was somebody who needed help and didn't get it. I mean, it's very common for families to not offer support when people start to transition, and so I'm not surprised that something like this happened. I'm not trying to excuse it away. Very clearly, she still takes the blame for stabbing people, no matter what the actual truth is. Her brother told the court that her claims that she did not receive any support during her transition were an insult to our family, an insult to society, and an insult to the LGBTQ community. There was no hatred, there was no malice, there was no ill will. There was resignation, to be sure, but ultimately there was acceptance. To justify these killings because of sexual identity or gender dysphoria beliefs is a truly cowardly act. Andrea should be ashamed of herself for it. And the judge did say he did not take her struggles with gender identity into account when sentencing her. This is just a sad situation all around. I know that there's a meme floating around right now about how trans activists, especially radical trans activists, claim that anybody who basically is not a radical trans activist, their belief harms and kills trans people, you know, misgendering them or using the wrong pronouns or whatever. It literally kills trans people. And the meme is that, well, it turns out that being trans actually kills people. I can see why you might get a chuckle out of that. There's some dark humor there, but this is just a sad situation. Y'all, this is real. There is a sexy eagle ad on Fur Affinity that leads to healthcare.gov. Are you serious? You wouldn't bang an eagle without having healthcare insurance? I don't think I'd bang an eagle at all, thank you very much. On the BBC, girls are more likely to face loneliness. Alright. Young women are more likely than young men to have feelings of loneliness, according to a study from the Office for National Statistics. 1 in 10 young people in the UK often feel lonely. Is this really worth... I can see how it can be worth a study, but is this really worth an article on? Like, you know, everyone feels lonely sometimes, you know? Sometimes you want to hang out with somebody and nobody's available, so you got to spend, like, an evening by yourself. And you go, like, oh, it's kind of lonely, you know? There's a difference between feeling lonely once in a while and, like, having no friends. The study found a stigma attached to loneliness, with young people fearing it would be seen as failing. Maybe that's a new thing. I know that I never felt a stigma attached to loneliness, at least not like short-term loneliness. I think everyone has nights once in a while where you want to see somebody but can't, and then you're just like, oh, well, I guess I'm by myself. It doesn't feel like you're failing, it feels like you're lonely and maybe you're bored. I can see, though, if you can't maintain friendships or something, that it could be seen as failing. I can see that. There were young people who used social media to cover up their feelings and pretend their lives were not lonely. I can see that too, because social media is just one giant fucking parade where everyone compares the shitty parts of their own lives to the good parts of other people's lives. It's actually been a problem for me too, you know? I think everyone has this problem. Like, I've logged in and seen high school and college friends doing some pretty incredible things with their lives, things that I wish that I'd be doing, but that I'm not. And part of me is like, well, I guess I'm just a failure. And, you know, maybe I am. But part of me also recognizes that those are highlights. Those aren't the average times of their life, it's the best times of their life. I could post some pretty remarkable things that I've done, and I'm sure some of them, during their lower points, would look at that and also feel the same way. The study from the ONS looks at the extent of loneliness among people aged between 10 and 24. There were about 11% who often felt lonely and a 34% who sometimes felt lonely, with more girls than boys feeling this way. And this is why the BBC is talking about it. It's a gendered issue for them. It's a girls' issue. Of course it is. But let's actually look at that study from the ONS. I have it right here. Children's and Young People's Experiences of Loneliness 2018. And this is how you can tell that the BBC only read the headlines of the study and just picked out things that fit with their worldview. You have the headline of this section in the study. Girls report experiencing loneliness slightly more often than boys. Okay, that's fine. That's what the BBC printed. Here's the actual content. On the loneliness scale, boys were more likely than girls to score 3, the lowest score, with 38.5% of boys and 29.9% of girls scoring in this way respectively. This means that boys were more likely than girls to say hardly ever or never, What this means is that boys are not lonely more than girls. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the inverse is true, that girls are actually more lonely than boys. Girls are more likely to score 4, 5, and 6 in the scale, suggesting that we're more likely than boys to choose the response some of the time. So there are more girls who are sometimes lonely than boys. However, when asked directly how often they feel lonely, we found no significant differences between boys and girls. 12.6% of boys reported that they often felt lonely, compared with 10.1% of girls, while over half of boys and half of girls reported that they hardly ever or never felt lonely. So as it turns out, when it comes to constant loneliness, there's actually 2% more boys. It's not even that big of a gap, but it's still ultimately a boys' problem. So the BBC did not actually read the contents of the study, they just printed what looked good to them. You can see on this graph that on the left side, there are more boys than girls that don't feel lonely at all. In the middle, there are more girls than boys that sometimes feel lonely. And then on the right, there are more boys than girls that always feel lonely. This honestly doesn't surprise me, because in general, in almost every measurement, men seem to hang out at the extremes more than women, on average. This works out across most metrics, whether we're talking about life success, or earnings, or average strength, or average intelligence or creativity. I'm not saying that women can't excel at any of these things, they obviously can, but men are more likely to boom or bust, while women are more likely to hang out around the average. But of course the BBC doesn't care about any of that kind of nuance, they just want to print what they want to print. This is an older article, May 15th, 2018. Israel has the right and obligation to defend its border with deadly force, by David French on the National Review. Israeli border police officers take positions during a Palestinian protest at the U.S. Embassy move to Jerusalem. Would you let people who want to kill you into your home? One of the enduring mysteries of modern political discourse is the way in which smart people who are not remotely anti-Semitic impose curious, unworkable double standards on the nation of Israel. Let's take, for example, the response of many on the left to the so-called Great Return March, an effort by thousands of Gazans to storm the Israeli border. A nation has the right to protect its integrity of its border, and that right is supplemented by an inherent right of self-defense in the face of a hostile foreign power. Yeah, it's all reasonable, isn't it? This David French guy knows what he's talking about. Oh, here's David French on October 30th, 2018. It's time to calm down about the caravan. What happened to the nation having a right to protect its border? What happened to the right of self-defense? When Gazans were marching on Israel, it was a big deal. Honestly, it's hard to think of a response less measured and more effective at undermining moderate support for immigration restrictions than the reaction of the president and key allies. The president's tweets have conveyed extraordinary alarm. Here are some selected entries. I have alerted Border Patrol and military this is a national emergency, must change laws. Many gang members and some very bad people are mixed into the caravan heading to our border. Please go back, you will not be admitted into the United States. This is the exact same thing that you said Israel should do. This is an invasion of our country and our military is waiting for you. Trump's right. And it's exactly what you said it was completely fine for Israel to do. Let's finish off with some Slate fun. I'm so sorry to report that Ted Cruz's new beard looks great. Sometimes, every once in a while, you have to admit that somebody that you may disagree with politically or ideologically is not a complete fucking scumbag serial killer. I have no particular fondness for this subject, and it brings me no pleasure to cover it. But as a truth-seeking journalist, I feel I must write what follows. Senator Ted Cruz's new beard looks great. I bet that is the first time ever a Slate journalist has written an inconvenient truth. Cruz showed up in the Senate with a filled-out salt and pepper beard, giving his face a defined jawline and its first ever hints of ruggedness and affability. Cruz's new beard serves as a proof point for a few aesthetic and economic theories. First, beards are contouring for men. Men who complain that women who wear a ton of makeup or don sunglasses in their Tinder profiles are scamming men into thinking they're hotter than they are had better never grow facial hair because beards are capable of facial trickery. I think there's a big difference there. Beards are a natural part of what men are, and makeup isn't. You have to take makeup off at the end of the day. The beard can just stay. I'm sorry for the lack of videos this week, guys, but that giant MasterCard project that I put out yesterday sucked up like 5 days of my time. And I'm also sorry about this SJ Weekly being shorter than normal. That's because I have a stream to prepare for tonight. It's the December community stream. It's happening tonight at 7:30 EST. If you're a Twitch sub or a Patreon donator, you are eligible to join us on a voice call while we watch Star Wars: The Holiday Special. And of course, you can always still watch from the chat room with us as well. In terms of channel support, I still have to stick with Patreon, unfortunately, because there are, as of yet, no viable alternatives. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we can figure something out. In any case, I hope to see you guys tonight.